会议室。今天要讲的主题在那边的 culture of sharing。如果有走错的，或者是你朋友想要听的，赶快打电话请他过来，好，不然等一下又没有座位，这是很糗的一件事情。好，那再来呢，我是这个场子的一个 host， 我是主持人。那有几件事情我们必须在这边跟各位说明一下。首先呢，第一个，好，那如果你在听讲的时候需要随时上网查询资讯，请你查询一下你的相关的开启无线网络，追寻到你的 SSID。we are sorry。好吧，那就请你寻找到你比较适合的位置，尽量分散流量，以避免网络的频宽塞车。第二个，麻烦你不要带食物或者是带进来，不要打开它可能因为你的香气会影响大家听的一个权利。另外呢，也麻烦你请你把手机关机或转为震动，以免影响到我们讲者的权利不然你开的话会吵到一些不该吵的东西。好，那接下来呢，我们就要准备展现你的热情，用力的掌声欢迎我们的讲者 Sasha。
谢谢，你好。Well, first of all, I have to apologize because during last year's Coscup, I promised to have my introduction at least in Mandarin. I failed miserably. I still can only speak, like, say some 20 words, only the important things like Yomeo Pijo and all these things. And so I'm absolutely sorry. And even though that I'm living over here now for 1.5 years, I promise you I'm going to give it a try next year again. So last year I've been talking about Linux and cloud computing, and this year I just would like to talk about, well, actually for the most of us it's kind of common sense. I don't want to talk about computers, I don't want to talk about software in general. I just would like to talk to you what this conference is all about and what open source is all about, and which is basically the culture of sharing. So what is culture? And of course, you know, the first thing that you're going to do is maybe looking it up on Wikipedia. And the definition of Wikipedia is a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterize an institution, organization, or group. Interesting that there's already share in there. Or the integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends upon the capacity of symbolic thought and social learning. The word culture comes from the Latin word cultura or colere. I had Latin in school for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, yeah. Well, actually, I can speak it like I had it for 6 weeks. I had it for 6 years and then nearly break my neck because I was pretty lazy in learning all these terms over there. But anyways, cultura and colere, when we're looking at the real meaning of them, it means to cultivate or to inhabit, even to admire, but it also means to care, which is quite interesting because some people are always saying sharing is caring or caring is sharing, which is quite interesting because that's what we are actually doing all the time, and that's why we are over here on such a conference, because we're trying to share our knowledge. We try to make new experiences and new contacts. When I started to make my content on netbooknews.com completely open source, it's not even under a license anymore, where we're using Creative Commons license for our videos, but the rest of our content is completely free, so everyone can monetize it, because we mainly wanted to get away from this culture of mine, and just only me. It was a matter of sharing finally. And when we did this, and when we started to create content over mobile computing devices from Taiwan, and then reaching out to the Western markets, because we have an English blog and we also have a German blog. The first thing, especially in Europe, that I faced with free content was this over here. Like people thought I'm stealing something away from them, right? Because I just wanted to give, and I was kind of stumbling upon them with free content instead of always making sure, hey, that's my content. And if someone else had this content too, people were becoming jealous instead of cooperating with each other and sharing your knowledge and sharing your content. And that's basically what happened to me. Is you all know the story of the netbooks and the EPC over here from ASUS when they came to the market about 2 years ago. Well, actually, it's almost 3 right now. I've had pretty much the first EPC, and no one in Germany or the US had one. And when I did my reviews and I wrote my content over the first EPC, a couple of sites were even banning me out of their forums because I had the content that they didn't have. And I thought, hey, something is weird over here. Why are people not embracing you? Why are people not willing to share? So they were mainly jealous because of someone having different content than them. So that's where it all changed for us. We said, okay, then it needs to be different. And it needs to be something that we took from the open source community. Well, I had my own embedded Linux distribution based on Gentoo back in 2004. And I said, why can I only share software? Why can't I share content? And right now we have this discussion where huge publishers are trying to hide their content behind paid walls, right? It's not going to happen. They will lose. So for us, it was all about sharing, and that's why we are starting to share our content. So it's not about sharing content. You can share whatever you want, right? As you can see over here, I'm not sure if you want to share your ice cream with your little puppy, but anyways, it looks kind of cute. Or you can share a big sandwich if you want to. Or we can also share materials. We can do car sharing, or we have that over here in Taipei too, right? Where we can share bikes. Of course, this is somehow a little bit controversial for the copyright industry, not for traditional file sharing, but mainly when you're heading over to the Pirate Bay. So, but anyways, the Pirate Bay is not about piracy. Of course, it's a kind of controversial term, but first of all, it's about sharing. And it's up to us what we are sharing. So if I'm sharing copyright material over there, it's not a matter of the Pirate Bay. So the way our whole culture changed in just 2 years, how we like to share, whatever we see, whatever we're experiencing, of course changed radically with the so-called social medias and social networks. Whether we're sharing I don't know, I think it's about 70 or 80 million status updates a day on Facebook, actually just in the US, right, which has about 130 million Facebook users, while globally we're at 500 million. So we're sharing our statuses on Facebook. And we're doing updates on Twitter over here on Plurk. And we're sharing our pictures on Flickr. And people are pretty much broadcasting themselves on YouTube. This is also something that we are doing. We're doing a lot of YouTube content. So we are willing to share what we are experiencing. And these opportunities that we have with these platforms, that changed so much in just a short time period. And it's just amazing how much content is getting produced and how much free content is getting produced. That wasn't happening like 3 years ago. It just came up recently still. But it's not about sharing personal things. I think by the end of the day, and that's why we are at a conference like the Coscup over here, and that's why we can also see if we compare the Coscup from this year to last year's Coscup, I think it was growing by 400% or something like that. It is way bigger this year because people are interested in sharing. People are interested to network, and people want to know and want to meet new people and want to get new influences. So sharing knowledge is very important for us in this community. I mean, these are just a few examples of what happened by sharing knowledge. These are one of the biggest or most popular programs on their markets, or most popular platforms. I I mean, even WordPress is open source. And it was created by a couple of hundreds or thousands developers because they were sharing their knowledge for free again. All of this is freely available. Think about what's happening with Android right now. If someone would say, like 2 years ago, you know what, Google is coming up with a mobile device operating system, and by the summer of 2010, they will sell 200,000 devices a day. Because that's what they're basically doing right now. So 200,000 smartphones with Google Android are getting sold a day, every day. Well, first of all, this is of course a number that comes from the Google PR office, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be accurate, especially when I see the momentum that Android has over here in the Asian and also especially in the Taiwanese developer community. It's just amazing. So GIMP and Firefox. Firefox has a market share of way over 20% for an open source browser. It's a little bit different in Europe. I think in Europe where we are around 50% of market share. So just because people got together and they were believing in a project and they were sharing their knowledge. And of course, I think the best example for let's say swarm intelligence is Wikipedia. I remember these very controversial discussions between like Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia a couple of years ago, where they tried to convince people, you know, you need to have a kind of instance on top of it that is going to control the content, because Wikipedia is controlling itself. So what happened in just a few years is that we have a free encyclopedia on the web.